across Texas who sent cohorts of 4 administrators to Texas Tech campus to receive training on advanced leadership skills that was provided by the National Leadership Consortium on Developmental Disabilities, who came from Delaware to do this training. They're the experts in the field, and they provided training for 3.5 days here on Texas Tech campus. And during that time, these agencies, they developed a challenge for themselves to implement at their facilities when they went back. And they've been working on that. And today is our conference where they're going to present on what they did. So we have 5 different agencies. Their Down Home Ranch, the Lubbock State Supported Living Center, Nueces Center, Spindletop Center, and Summer House. So each of these agencies will be presenting. And some of the things that I need to tell everyone up front is that we will be recording this session. So wanted to let everyone know that. There are accessible PowerPoints available on our website. So if you need those, just go to the website. And Dev, could you post a link in the chat to those so that everyone could have that available to them? We have interpreters too. Thank you to them for being here. And evaluation forms that need to be completed immediately following this conference. So we also will have a guest speaker who's associated with the National Leadership Consortium and who's known in the field of developmental disabilities for speaking, Kathy Ficker-Terrell. She's here, and she's going to do a presentation at the end of this conference. And after each of the presentations by the agencies, she's going to provide a response to the leadership challenge that they implemented. So they'll have some individual type feedback on their challenge. So we're looking forward to this. Also, Dr. Griffin Shirley is going to be the timekeeper. So look for her to put up numbers. There's number 5. And she's going to keep us on track. She loves to do that. She will stop you if you go over. So, and she keeps me on track as well. So I think we've covered it all so far. I don't want to waste any time. We want to go ahead and get started. And we'll start with Down Home Ranch with their presentation. So if you want to go ahead and pull up your PowerPoint, I think Neil is controlling that, or maybe they're doing it themselves.
I think the individual presenters should be able to share their own screens, but if not, we can troubleshoot that.
Wonderful.
I'll work on it. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
So Stacy, just to make sure that I'm on time here, they're going to present until 9 o'clock, correct?
Check the agenda.
Because I think you start a little early.
Oh, okay.
Because welcome on my agenda, welcome and introductions are 8:30 to 8:45.
Yeah, they have until 9:15 actually.
Okay, so are we starting now or are we waiting to 8:45?
Is everybody on?
Yeah, that would be my concern.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You got real excited,
I was
Stacy.
very eager. Yeah. To get going.
That's wonderful. It is a very exciting day for everyone involved with the project. So
We have 29 participants so far.
very good. That's excellent.
Are our interpreters here?
Yes. Interpreter is here too, I assume. So Stacy, we probably want to wait a few minutes just to make sure everybody is logging on at 8:30 for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. So everyone gets an opportunity to see everything.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nora.
exactly. Sorry about that. I thought normally, I get on a half hour ahead and I'm going, whoa, I must have time wrong here, but that's okay. That's okay. We're just moving right along. Very exciting. And I couldn't get any sound for like 5 minutes. I don't know what the deal was, but now I have it loud and clear. Thank you.
Since the agenda said it started at 8:30, I'm thinking we will have more guests, maybe from cohort 2. So maybe at 8:30, Stacy, Deb, and Nora, Kristen, maybe we should all introduce ourselves.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Nancy, Caitlin, and I are on from our team, so we'd be happy to say a quick hi and hi to everyone from this year 1 cohort. We're excited to see the work that all of you have been doing and to see if maybe we have any additional resources or things that we can send your way, but really just excited to hear what you've been working on.
I'm Nora Griffin Shirley, and I'm co-investigator on the TCDD grant and also the program evaluator and the mentorship coordinator for this project, and a professor at Texas Tech.
I'm Nancy Weiss. I'm with the National Leadership Consortium in Delaware, and we're looking forward to hearing what's going on in Texas.
I'm Devendra Banda. I'm one of the co-investigators on the project.
Hi, everyone. Kristen Loomis. I know I just spoke, but I'm the program director at the National Leadership Consortium, and we'll be working with you during the week-long virtual event in November. So looking forward to that.
Stacy, did you want us to not have the videos going? Because I noticed many people to save bandwidth.
Yeah, I think that was, once the presentations get started, we would turn off
Okay,
our
then I will.
video.
I'm Pam Lindell. I am kind of the business associate for the leadership project. I'm the glue that holds it all together.
I'm Caitlin Bailey. I work with the National Leadership Consortium as well. And again, also looking forward to hearing from Group 1 and meeting Group 2.
Good morning. I'm Jesse Smathers. I am also with the Leadership Consortium. I joined to see the presentation that the Noosa Center put together and the other presentations.
Hi, this is Jana from Nueces.
And this is Gina with Nueces Center.
And Heather Trevino with Nueces Center as well. This is Megan Copeland from the Lubbock State Supported Living Center.
I'm Monica Zock with Spindletop Center and Nikisha Coates with Spindletop Center.
Also Holly Borrell with Spindletop Center.
Erica Turner with Spindletop Center.
Hey, it's Angie Crutchfield with Summer House Houston. I'm here with Brooke Majors, Joanna Burnett, and Bria Long.
Good morning, this is Jennifer Eccles, and I work with Hill Country MHDD Centers, and in this project worked for the National Leadership Consortium with Summer House Houston.
Stacy, you might want to go ahead and do the housekeeping tips again.
Okay.
We have Richard and Angela, what's her name? Skylar from TCDD. They might want to introduce.
Yeah.
Sure, I can go. My dog was barking, so I didn't want to be interruptive. I'm Skylar Mueller. I'm West Texas Regional Coordinator with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. I'm in partnership with Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities.
Hey, good morning, folks. I'm Richard Rendon. I'm a TCDD grant coordinator. I work with the Texas Tech University staff on this grant. It's good to be here today.
And then we also have Neil that is going to help us.
Yes, Neil can now work with the college. I'll be providing some technical support. I just wanted to remind everybody, like Nora and Stacy said, a little bit of housekeeping. If you're not presenting, just keep your mic and your camera off, and that'll help us preserve bandwidth. If you're making use of the interpreter, you can right-click on the interpreter's picture in Zoom and click Pin Speaker, and that way the interpreter will always be on your screen. Thanks, it's nice meeting everybody. I'll be here, but silent.
Okay, I hope everyone's introduced themselves now. Hope we haven't left anybody out. Again, we're going to be recording this entire session, and there are accessible PowerPoints that are available on our website. We have interpreters, like Neil said, you can pin those up. And Nora has sent evaluation forms to the agencies, and there's so the evaluation forms need to be completed immediately following this follow-up conference. And we're excited. So we have 5 different agencies that received training from the National Leadership Consortium, came to Texas Tech for 3.5 days, received the training, developed a leadership challenge to implement when they went back. They've been doing that. And they're here to report on that. We have Kathy Ficker-Terrell, who is going to provide is going to speak near the end of this conference, and she'll also be responding to each of the agencies' presentations after they're done. So we're going to, I think we're still ahead of time according to this. So we'll, I guess, give 5 more minutes for a few more people to show up and for everyone to get set up and ready to present.
So I'll do 5 minutes for the speakers, and then 1 minute you have left, and then I'll also put it in the chat.
Are there any guests that are not connected to the project they might want to introduce? Because we want to know who else had joined.
Hi, I'm Rosita Moore with Project TAD, also with Texas Tech University. And I'm a guest this morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
This is Nora. I think we should begin, Stacy. That's okay.
Works for me. So Down Home Ranch, if you're ready to go ahead and start presenting, go right ahead.
Good morning, everyone. So usually I'll do a magic trick to start presentations, but I'm magic trickless this morning, so you'll have to forgive me. So what we're going to do is go through, I have my team on, we'll talk about them in a second. We're just going to go through and then we'll leave some time for Q&A. So you are going to hear babies in the background, trying to alleviate that as much as possible, but if you hear some screaming, forgive me. So Down Home Ranch has been in business for about 31 years. We're outside of Austin. We're a 410-acre ranch. Whenever the founders came up with the idea of the ranch, what they were looking for is a program that would be self-sufficient from governmental income. However, over time, the ranch actually supports people through Medicaid waivers and also through ICF. So we still have a big focus on social enterprise and social entrepreneurship. So about half of our income comes from those funding streams and also development. And the difference of that comes from our residential program. We serve about 43 people, and that's both at the ranch, but also in the city of Elgin in home and community-based service. And we're looking to serve about 50 people that's our long-term goal. In addition to that, we serve hundreds of people each year, except for this year, in our camp program that we do each summer, our day program. We also have a respite program where we support quite a few people. So looking at the team members, we have Craig, he's our executive director, he's on today. Myself, I'm the operations officer, I'm Barry. We also have Casey, who's the client services director, and then Cynthia, who's our residential program manager. And then the consultants who supported us was Lynn, and then she leveraged some resources that she has with the NADSP. So we actually had some support from John, Desiree, Dan, and Joe with NADSP, which was really great. Whenever we started brainstorming what we wanted our project to be about or a challenge to be about, we were looking at staff training, and we all follow closely NADSP and just trying to understand through the research that they were doing and the support they provide, how do we make sure that our staff are competent, that they have the resources that they need to do the best job possible. And we had been working on that for a couple years. We already had some ideas where we wanted to do a new employee orientation video. We were using some other resources, some of the training resources. We're also developing our own. We also made sure that we had staff trainings and talked about supervision to happen from the manager to the DSP. So we already kind of had a foundation for what we wanted. After leaving the institute or the training, some expectations that we had for ourselves is that we wanted to have a higher retention rate for our DSP. We also wanted to improve the interaction between the staff and the individuals that we support. And then also ensuring that the staff have the information that they need in order to really support informed decision-making. and then also support a higher quality of life. So a couple things that we were doing that we finished up. So we did a new hire video, and what we noticed is that whenever people onboarded, even though we're a small organization, whenever people onboarded, they may not have met or even laid eyes on a lot of the people who they're receiving emails from, or even the other peers doing similar work in our organization. So we really wanted to do something with that, where someone came in, they got to see all of those different pieces. And it allowed for employees to introduce themselves, talk about responsibilities, but also talk about the other, the social entrepreneurship and those social enterprises that we're doing that fund many of the programs that we do. And also really provide some familiarity and support the culture that we're looking to do. Now, we also did an employee survey, and we've done these in the past, but we made them more focused. And if any of you have either taken an employee survey or have been on the receiving end of an employee survey, I think mostly it's the receiving end that can be kind of high stress. But we allowed for it to be anonymous, which has its pros and its cons. And we really saw that through, especially like through the so we did it before the pandemic, and then following the pandemic, I mean, we saw what you would expect: a little bit of burnout, people wanting to get paid more, but also we saw a ton of positives. You know, why people choose to work for the organization, and resoundingly, I mean, I would say, if not 100%, just shy of that, said the people that we work with, which is absolutely amazing. Then the other part that we're looking at is, and to talk a little bit more about like the pay piece, is we were really looking at how do we have a structure for paying people more in a meaningful way. Also, at this point, that's not going to break the bank, because we have to look at budgeting and long-term strategy. So NADSP, credentialing, I mean, they have all of this there, and the national team is absolutely amazing helping us get this together. We collaborated with them, looking at ways that people can do training, get credit for competency, and then we can tie that competency to increase in pay that's meaningful and shoots towards a livable wage, and really develops that career ladder. Some challenges, of course, is COVID. And then also, whenever we're onboarding folks, we had to put some processes in place to ensure that the hiring process aligns with the process and procedure we have in place for infection control. And also, since we are a small organization, there's lots of face-to-face time that we would have. If it was seeing people in their home and checking in with them and being able to support staff as needed, or the programming, or even, you know, the people who are doing, who are working offsite, you know, in the community, whenever we would roll by and see them at their place of work, not really able to do that anymore. So we actually had to talk about ways and strategize how do we maintain that culture, but in a different way. And then shifting our in-person trainings that we were doing to be online, and utilize and leveraging the resources that we have through Teams and these other types of electronic media, and trying not to overuse email. So one of the things that we put in place is we initiated a town hall. So we looked out and saw what other people were doing and being able to get information to people. And this actually had some really interesting outcomes too. So we were doing them weekly for a bit, whenever all this information was coming out from the state and, you know, the CDC and CMS. Wanted to make sure people had the information that they need. But then, as in Texas, there was there was a decline briefly. And in that decline, we said, well, maybe we'll move it to every other week. As it ticked back up, we went back to every other week. So what we've done is in that, the learning curve was we use it as a way to give information. And of course we had some Q&A, but what we did, I think unintentionally, but had a good result, is that the people that we serve were a part of it. The intention was to give the information to staff, but of course the people who we serve are in the home, so they became actively engaged. I think most of the Q&A was filled with questions from the individuals that we support, which was pretty great. And what that did is actually helped us kind of frame, the meetings going forward. So it ensured that they were becoming more actively a part of what we're doing. And then also looking at, we use Indeed and a couple other places where we post positions. And Lynn actually had some great tools with doing some referral bonuses. So we made that change where instead of spending that money elsewhere on electronic recruitment, we moved it in-house, and now we're doing bonuses. So at this point, if a staff refers someone and they get hired, when they get hired, they're going to get a couple $100 bonus. So some lessons that we've learned. We have, as a nonprofit, we have access to quite a few digital tools at pretty low cost that we really weren't using to capacity. I'm sure all of us are extremely familiar with Teams now and Zoom and doing life by computer. But in the past, before pre-COVID, we did a lot of face-to-face and unfortunately a lot of email. But moving away from doing as much face-to-face, using Teams has been really great, and everyone's utilizing it. And then also looking at our, whenever we're bringing people on, this was also something that our consultant talked quite a bit about, was really looking for people in a DSP capacity who have really great customer service. So looking at that as a quality, and that's something that we can give as, direction to the staff too, whenever they're doing their referrals, which is great. Also, I think that professionally, we know what professional consultation is, and we know that if we need help, we need to get it. But also in the nonprofit world, it's do more with less. So we have to know that there are some times that we may be able to do internally, but it may take us away from things that we should really be focused on. And an example of that was we were looking at doing training. We were using Relias and a couple other tools, and then we were developing some trainings internally that more aligned with our culture. As we were doing that, it definitely took time to do and to manage, but we were starting to utilize Open Futures Learning. Last month, we started using it. And it's not, it's not something that is necessarily novel to, use an outside source for training and training help. But what it does do is you have to make sure that the training aligns with the culture of the organization and how you want for the direct support staff who are working every day to support the people that they're working with. And I think we found it with Open Futures. And of course, including people who we support in organizational decisions. And there's been some conversation about how we do that more, and we're strategizing it. So we have been doing the survey, like I said, but we actually made a commitment that we're going to start doing it every 6 months. We're going to review the results in an ongoing managers meeting that we have. We're going to de-identify things that may have that may be negative or perceived negative. But we're going to de-identify, but also we're going to talk about those positive trends too. So, hey, we're doing great in these areas, but here's some things that we need to look at. And we're going to keep talking about those and have the teams talking about them too. And then using the information that we're getting from the town halls and the other types of input to make sure that we're giving the information that people need, and that organizationally, we're looking to problem solve what those persistent issues are. I would say more than half of the surveys that came back this time talked about wanting or needing a pay increase. So looking at how to do that. And we started Open Futures, it was actually this month. So folks are starting to work on getting any there's a piece of where they have to get some essentially CEU, so they're working on that. And then next month we're going to start the eBadge Academy with NADSP. This month we started cohorts, so we have 3 residential programs that we have. So we have our waiver, and then ICF, and then we have a private pay program. Private pay program and HCS are together. And what we're doing is we identified a staff within each one of those, a DSP or someone who is working in our day program to head that up and be the leader of those cohorts. They just had their first meeting this month. Then also looking at completing that process. So just 3 weeks ago, we're starting our budget process for next year. And 3 weeks ago, we started looking at what would the levels increase based on the NADSP career ladder. And then also we had the conversation, we've had some DSPs that have been with us a while. So if they're outside of that career ladder, whatever the bookends on what we're putting on the dollar amount based on budget, how can we give them a financial incentive? So we're looking at doing some bonuses. We just finished that up. So hopefully in the upcoming months, we'll have some successes where people get their first credential and then get their first increase or bonus. So for us as an organization and a leadership of the organization, really feel there's always been a culture of staff development, but we put an emphasis on it. We updated a policy even in our handbook that allows for people who want to access education to be able to do that. And there's a monetary amount that the organization will help with. And looking at that as being a way that it can increase the quality of life of the DSP and the other staff that work at the ranch, but also the people that they're supporting. Also, really making sure that we trust the DSP, and this is not just from leadership down, but across the board. We got to make sure that we're trusting people, that they're doing the best they can, and that they're making decisions in the best way possible, and that they're making those informed decisions. And whenever they make a decision, that if you were to ask in a non-judgmental way, like, what got you to this, that the staff doesn't feel that there's going to be recourse or that they're going to get in trouble. So those are things that we want to work towards too. Decentralizing decision-making. And one other really great exercise that we're implementing is in the team meetings that they're having at the residential level, looking at the ethics and competencies that NADSP have outlined. And this is something, of course, that our consultant suggested. And I think that what that does is it embeds it in kind of the ongoing conversation. And so whenever there's decisions to be made, whenever you're there in the moment, you have this information and conversation that allows for you to make these decisions based on these ethics and competence.
Oh shoot. Can you lower the volume on this?
Someone's not on mute. Okay, so that wraps that up. Now what we're gonna do is turn it over to you guys. Like I said, Casey, Cynthia, and Craig are on the call, so feel free to ask any questions and we can answer them. I did find my magic trick if anyone's interested.
Sure. This is Kathy Terrell. Shall I go now or wait for questions?
If there are no questions, Kathy, I think you should go. And certainly if there are some questions in between, you can field them, and they can also put them in the chat and we can read those and deal with that. Thank you.
Okay.
There you have a question. It's Megan in Lubbock. Have you found that people have been happier receiving less emails and getting their information through Zoom calls?
Casey, I think, probably answer that the best.
Yeah, I would say for sure. I mean, obviously,
I'll mute mine.
It's hard to quantify that exactly, but I do think that people feel a little bit more connected to the process. So we have these management level meetings that we had always done before, but we really haven't successfully drawn in the rest of the
Guy? Okay, maybe Damon started and then just ask some questions.
I think, I don't know if someone needs to mute, but so yeah, not only, I mean, for the DSPs for sure, for people that don't work directly with our individuals, I think has always been a group that we haven't tapped into as well, whether it's maintenance or someone else that making them feel more part of the process. And then like Barry mentioned, I think to me, the coolest part of it was how involved our individuals that we serve were able to be. So they were getting the information. So I would say, obviously, in terms of do they feel good getting less emails? Probably, but I definitely know that people felt more connected to what we were doing because of these meetings that they could actively be a part of.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate that, like being able to be a part of a conversation rather than reading it on a screen, I think overall, anecdotally, has had a much positive outcome, especially on connection. So that was a positive question. Do we have any, we want to fill the not so positive either. Does anyone have a potential question about?
Oh, Barry, I see one in the chat. It says, what are the town hall meetings like for your staff? So what those have been, so we're doing them through Microsoft Teams, which is similar to Zoom right now. We'll have to see once this is all over if we continue to do that or if we try to build in more in person. So the fact that everyone got involved in it was kind of by accident, but a really happy accident because the timing of it, we always have staff that are actively working with our individuals or doing something else. So to make it available, we just said anyone and everyone can log in and see it. And so we have run it similar because the videos can get kind of crazy. We have it set where the presenters are the only ones that are actively seen on video, but everyone has the chat. And so people will type in their questions on the chat, or sometimes they'll just text them to us as we're talking, and then we will answer them. So again, I think potentially we could go in person eventually, and that would be even more of a conversation, but we found it worked best to have a few people on video, but everyone available to contribute, to chat, to send questions, and that seems to work pretty well so far.
In Teams, it's called a live event, and I just sent, there's a YouTube video where it talks about, we actually are doing it for families too, and so I sent this to them so they could prepare for it. It shows like how to access a live event, but there's tons of, YouTube University is full of these, so look at that and it can definitely give you some info. Casey, do you want to talk maybe just briefly about how well received the DSP credentialing is?
Yeah, so we just, like Barry mentioned in the presentation, we just introduced that a week or two ago. And so they have the open future learning part already where they're able to kind of see those trainings, and then we'll start the e-badge in a couple of weeks. I actually have my training on that tomorrow. But everyone's really excited. I think what was nice about it, and NADSP really had kind of promoted this to us, is that it's not mandatory. So we have our mandatory trainings that the state requires and that we require, and this is separate from that. So it's kind of a go at your pace, the cohorts, and obviously the benefit of it is hopefully people want to kind of learn and grow, but then also to incentivize, we have added those ladders where at each step of the e-badge ranking, they will get a pay bump. And so we're hoping that in not making it, you go and sign in and do this training every 5 minutes, but here's the motivation to learn and grow, that people will latch onto it a little bit more. Obviously it's new to us, so we'll see what happens, but it seems like people are really positive right now, both in the opportunity to learn some new things, and then also obviously that it's going to be a pay bump is, you know, we're realistic that that's a part of the motivation for sure.
I'll just talk briefly about the decision to really put a focus on this. I think for me, I've always been interested in ensuring that people have the information that they need to do the best job they can. But it's pretty difficult, as I'm sure all of you know, to be able to get people that information if it's not your the job that you spend 100% of your time in. So making sure that you can have a focus on it, and that's the getting the outside help part. And I think that, you know, I mean, as an organization, we've been talking about this and we've been trying to implement these things, you know, over time. And the leadership challenge, like, just, it gave like that, okay, so now it has to start and we need to be really intentional about it. I think there was a lot of effort that was put into giving that information and ensuring that people felt supported. But I think now we're actually in the doer phase of it, which is really great.
Yeah, Barry, I just want to say something kind of along that same lines. For us as an organization, you know, we were going through a transformation already that started a couple of years ago. You know, turning an organization is kind of like turning a battleship. It takes a long time to really get in the direction you want. So we were hitting a lot of the higher level things, and you know, decision making was one of them, where in the past, a lot of the decision making was made in one place, and just saying, hey, we want to be able to delegate decision making all the way down through the organization, you know, all the way to the DSP level. And the leadership program came up at the perfect time, because I think we had done well at doing the higher level stuff, but we hadn't done as well at the lower level and at the level where it matters the most. So for us, this coming up and then saying, okay, great, here's the pieces that we're missing, and now we can get them in place. And we did a lot of talking about vision, mission, core values. And we realized if we get the core values right, and then we train the DSPs, they can make decisions based off those core values and know that they're in line with the organization. So like when Barry was talking about somebody makes a decision, are they going to get hammered for it afterwards? You know, and you look at it, it's like, wow, they followed the core values. It fits perfectly. But all that takes is that training and trust in the individual to make those decisions, and that takes time. So the program came out at a perfect time for us, and as we move the organization forward, it's just going to be a huge benefit. In the new hire video, the part about it that I really love is each department talks about how they implement the vision and mission of the organization. I actually think that was Barry's idea, and it's cool because then
I'll take credit.
And somebody coming into the organization, let's say they're going to be working in admin or something. You know, they're seeing the same video. They're seeing what the people are doing in the houses, how they're working with the residents, and they're seeing how they actually implement the mission in all areas of the organization. And that was a huge piece that we missed in the past. So that video is really going to bring a lot together for somebody coming in. They're going to have a basic understanding of the full organization and how everybody does things. So anyways, so I appreciate everything that this program's done for us.
Well, this is Kathy Ficker-Terrell, and if I could take the opportunity to make a few comments. Congratulations to the Down Home Ranch team. First, for taking the step to access leadership training for your team. That's the first step. And then to define solutions or outcomes, and then work toward their implementation. So kudos to you. I have a few comments and a few questions. So Barry, the first question is, when you did the new hire video, and I think it's great that you highlighted the priorities for each department, did you also include a realistic job preview for potential new employees so they really understood what kind of a job they're going to do, as opposed to recruiting, getting them trained, and then they suddenly say, you want me to what?
NADSP, they have the realistic job preview, and whenever we were doing the consultation with them, I forget who asked, but they asked that, oh yeah, we have that on our website. It's right below where people, click the button to apply. And they're like, well, that's not really how you're supposed to use it. So we're gonna we're looking at that. The plan is whenever onboarding people, we're going to watch that with them or have them watch it, and then have a guided conversation about it before finishing up the onboarding process.
We got to the point once where we would bring people in and have like movie with popcorn and snacks, and we would show the realistic preview, and then when it was over, we'd leave the lights off for a minute and say, if anybody wants to leave, now is the time. It's okay. And if you want to stay, that's okay too. And then we would proceed. And it was interesting. We had a few people say, oh my goodness, this is not for me. I had no understanding. And of course we had others that were like, yes, this is what I'm choosing. So just a thought. My other question is on the employee survey. Are you also doing a self-advocate survey to survey your customers in some way?
We are not at that. We're not utilizing that. Casey, do we have anything that you're using in programs?
Yeah, we have what's called a satisfaction survey that goes out to both families and the individuals, and that's something we've had for a long time, but it's definitely not very robust. So I think it's something now that we've kind of gotten these other things in place that definitely needs to be looked at. It's a pretty basic, like, how's everything going? So
do you like it here? Do you like your staff? Yeah, so as you look at that down the line and in the future, may I just strongly encourage you to look at existing tools that allow it to be taken either online orally or done as an interview, because so many of the people we support are non-readers. And so to give them a paper survey is difficult, and or it requires them to fill it out with staff, and they may not want to say anything negative against the person supporting them at the moment. But there are a number of creative tools out there that you could use where people could do it independently.
Do you have an example? Can you share some with us afterwards?
Oh, sure. Just, would that be okay? You could just follow up with me after, and I could give you some examples. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Great news on the staff recognition. Staff recognition is so important. Can you talk a bit about what are some of the things you're doing in terms of the staff retention? I think the referral bonuses are excellent. And just on the referral bonuses, I would say something I've used for 25 years. But you also have to make sure that your employment policies are up to date such that referral bonuses bring in family members, neighbors, and close friends, and then you have to make sure that your policies don't allow family members and close friends to supervise each other. And so do you have that under control?
We do have it where people can't supervise family and friends. But
Good morning, sir. Hey, you got a minute?
In thinking about doing the referral bonus, I don't think that I necessarily considered that part of it. So I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Okay. Hearing, somebody needs to mute. Okay. So I think it's great that you're doing so many town halls. I think it's excellent that by accident, self-advocates got to be part of it. And I think what I'm hearing is that in your redesign after COVID and you go perhaps face-to-face, I would just really encourage you to make sure that self-advocates are invited in an integral part of the town hall meetings.
Kathy, I'd like to comment on the part of the things we did for the retention.
Yeah.
Obviously, so the referral bonus, the training, obviously the more confident somebody feels in their job, the better they're going to do, the better the interactions. But then the other thing that we decided to do is we wanted to provide a good benefits program. So what we ended up doing was we have medical, dental. So we pay like 60% of medical. We pay like 95% of dental. We pay 100% of life insurance for $20,000, and then we upgraded. We pay 100% long-term disability. We offer short-term disability. So we built a very good benefits program that any full-time person is eligible for. And then we have a 403B profit sharing that after 1 year with the organization, we'll match 4%. So we.
Yeah, those are excellent, and those are huge retention things for staff. And the only thing I would just take it one step further, and you may already be doing this, is that build it into all of your retraining so that when you have orientation and then retraining, staff forget about those things. You know, staff look at their paycheck and say, like, who's FICA? Why is he getting part of my paycheck? And they forget that, like, under your 403B program, you're probably doing some kind of a match, which is like bonus money. But we have to remind them, in my opinion, every 6 months, in a short way, what those amazing benefits are, because although your salary may be X, when you add this package, it's an additional 20%. And often we forget about what it would cost to go to the marketplace and get insurance, what it would cost to start your own 403B. So excellent. Just, I would encourage you to remind them how wonderful it is.
Yeah. And then we looked at pay scales too. So even with the DSPs, the pay scales go from anywhere from $12 to almost $16 an hour. So we're trying to build a, you know, the financial and the benefits piece to be attractive, because we know that obviously it's a stressful job. They deal with a lot of issues and stuff. We want them to feel like they're fairly compensated also. But that's a great comment about reminding them. I worked in the business world, and they'd give us a one-sheet thing every year that broke everything out. You could see your base salary and then what the benefits cost, and it would give you a total dollar amount. So we should implement.
Okay. I think we're almost out of time. So if I'll just make 1 minute of a couple just additional things. Excellent job having DSP mentors with your eBadge Academy. Congratulations. I think it's good that you're not only using Relias, but looking at Open Futures Learning. I would just encourage you to, if maybe you're already doing it and I just didn't hear, including people with disabilities in your orientation and in your staff trainings. People with disabilities are excellent trainers, especially in classes like transportation safety. Who better to teach your staff safety and tie downs in transportation, but a person with a disability. Often people with disabilities are leading the class on effective communication. And of course, they are often leading the class on human rights. And the last thing I would say is, I think it's great that you're doing the survey every 6 months and reviewing it with managers. And I would just also encourage you to either include people with disabilities on that team or review it also with self-advocates or the Self-Advocacy Council, so that you're reviewing that with them as well. So with that, kudos to you. You've done some great work, and I hope that you will continue.
Thank you, Kathy. This is Nora.
Thanks.
And we're moving on. Thank you so much. I think if we could see everyone would be applauding for the group. And we're now ready at 9:20 for Lubbock State Supported Living Center's presentation. So remember to look in the chat as well for the time and just for questions and comments. Nice job, everyone. Moving on. Very good.
Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Megan Copeland. I'm with the Lubbock State Supported Living Center. We also have Lameka Abdul-Jami on here as well, and she can chime in whenever we might need. I'm not able to open my camera because the computer is being very weird. So when I opened up my laptop to try to do that, I lost connection for a minute. So you won't see me, but you will definitely hear me. So we are a state-supported living center. Many of y'all know what those are. We have 13 of them throughout the state of Texas. Our team is Jim Rodriguez, the Assistant Director of Administration, Kelly Jeanbu, Human Rights Officer. Both of them are not able to be present. Megan Copeland, I'm an occupational therapist. Lameka Abdul-Jami, she's a Assistant Director to Behavior Services. So at our facility here in Lubbock, we have almost 200 clients and around 800 staff. So a lot of moving parts with working on satisfaction and care for our clients. We are under the HHSC umbrella. We are a residential facility and serve those 200 clients here as residential. We are driven annually by their annual meetings where we're required to look at goal areas in leisure, living, independence, work program, and relationships. And through those drive skill acquisition that we're working on throughout that year to show progress towards independence and towards community involvement and transition to community. I'm trying to see if I can get the next slide to come up. There we go. Our overall goal is to improve the client care. I think that's what everyone wants. And I put on here our coat of arms that we did at the training. Some of the things that we had to think about when we were coming up with what our plan was, that we have a lot of people we answer to. Because we are a living center, we answer to state office. We have DOJ, Department of Justice, that came in 2005, and then a settlement agreement was created. And we have had court monitors in our facilities since 2010. For a while, they were coming every 6 months. And then as we've progressed, some they have moved to every 9 months. And then with COVID-19, it's actually been the next time that they will be looking at our information will be from a distance, and it will have been a year since they've been here. So you can imagine with that, we've had lots of changes throughout all those years. I started here as a student in 2006, so all I've ever known is this facility with Department of Justice involvement. We have commissioners we have to answer to, and so we really as a team had to focus on what's in our control. What can we actually look at here and change without jumping through hoops and barrels at state office and with legislature, and start a fire, start a little flicker that can become a fire of change. We also have had lots of consultants in various ways throughout the years. So you can imagine Our leadership, our professional teams, and our DSP have had lots of burnout. And who gets affected by that? Our clients that we serve. So we wanted to really boost the morale of the staff and the clients so that we can directly affect their lives in a positive way. The plan was to increase satisfaction, and this will assist in recruitment and overall retention of staff. So when we returned to work after our seminar, the very last day of our training that we had, we actually were sitting and waiting to hear who our new director of our facility was. We'd had the same director for several years, and she was leaving, and it was up in the air who we would have. And we got the answer at the end of that day. And so we knew whoever it was going to be, we wanted to meet with them very quickly to determine what their direction for the facility would be and if it aligned with our direction and our goals. Then we came back to work, and guess who was here? Our court monitors. So we all tried to really look at things differently that week. We were on a positive high from everything that we'd learned, all the people that we had met, the resources that we were creating. And it was a very weird week to have that high to come into stress mode of what are we going to do? What are we going to be asked of for DOJ court monitors to be given? And so there is a disconnect there that it seemed very negative into what we were having this awesome positivity. So we took a lot of notes on that and just tried to see where those disconnects were and kind of how we could look at things differently in the future. We also discovered that our ombudsmen, we have them throughout the state. They are an independent, impartial, free service that investigates complaints, and they advocate for the residents' rights. So Kelly is our human rights officer, but we also have had an ombudsman that's here on campus, and they have an ombudsman department throughout the state. Our director that we have now she was our ombudsman before. And so she's done lots of touring throughout the country of looking at different places. And when we talked about some of the locations in Oregon, she has actually toured those facilities. We did find out that our team's vision was in line with the vision of our director. However, she also told us the things that you are saying are not where the state of Texas is currently, and that we have a long way to go to show true inclusion in the community. She said, some of your ideas, I like them a lot. They are currently radical ideas. But the way she spoke with us said, I feel like this is where we need to go as a state. And if we can be any part of that as a living center, to be on that point to look at inclusion in the community, then that's what we want to be a part of. So what did we do? What was our plan? Our initial plan, we needed to start small, and we do have some long-term plans that we're going to talk about in a few slides. But initially what we wanted to do was create satisfaction surveys, which I believe a lot of us are going to be talking about today, because that's what we want to know. We need to know where everyone stands, and after we put some things in place, how do you feel after that? Do you feel like you belong here? We didn't just want to look at staff. Are you satisfied? We wanted to look at it in 3 different groups. We wanted to look at our direct support professionals. We wanted to ask our clients, and we want to ask our ID team members. Those are our professionals with the doctors, the nurses, the QIDPs, the residential coordinators, the behaviorists, the therapists, the programs people that come together to create the plans for them, and find out from each one of their standpoints with different kinds of questions, not just one overall survey. How do you feel? Do you feel like this is the place you belong to work? Is this the place you belong to live? We wanted to look at these 3 groups separately and graph the data to determine how similar the views are, or how different they are, and also to look at progress. We plan to meet with the facility director monthly for progress and next steps. And then we wanted to review local policies and procedures to determine which ones are not client-centered. We put a lot of things in place, I think, as policies and procedures when something happens that's very reactive. And so there's been a massive injury or something got overlooked when someone came back from a hospital and a policy goes into place. And it doesn't take into account that we have individuals, that policy might touch them in a different way, but doesn't support their client-centered goals and just their wants and needs. And so some of those are examples of, we had issues at one point in time with people going on respite to different homes or moving from other homes. And they made a lot of changes to how we do in-servicing of information. However, the time frame is very short and it is too much information for the staff to actually process all the things they're supposed to know for that client. And then if anything goes wrong, then they could be held accountable for that, or the people that didn't get the training done in that right time frame. So we really feel like there's some things within that can be looked at. Another example is we have a local policy about guardianship, that someone who works here cannot be a guardian for a client. Who better to be a guardian for somebody if they need a guardian to help them with medical decisions than somebody that knows them well and cares for them. So those are just a couple of examples of some local policies that we thought with the director and the administration that they could look at to see what can actually be changed to make it client-centered. So the progress we made. The progress bar is still loading because we had some problems that we'll talk about in a little bit. The surveys were created. That's our progress. We have 3 different surveys. As part of the Human Rights Office, they have actually had some other satisfaction surveys in the past, and it was deemed that those didn't really address all the areas that we wanted to look at. So they were researched and found and made more individualized for our facility. So this is just like at a glance what they all look like differently. So we have our interdisciplinary teams where we wanted to look at these subgroups of collaboration, communication, company leadership, individual client focus, engagement, growth and development, inclusion, job enablement, performance and accountability, and strategic alignment. And there's a bunch of different questions underneath it, and I just kind of summarized what they were within these slides. But they're more, they're a little bit lengthier to really allow for the person taking the survey to know what we're really seeking the information of. Then more strategic alignment, work processes, survey follow-up, and retention. Will you be able to reach your full potential here? Would you reapply for your job? Will you be working here a year from now? And are there frustrations that cause you to dread coming to work? And then we provided place for narrative for anything that didn't fit in those categories, positive or negative, for someone to be able to write in to really provide more insight. So then we made one for our direct support professionals. We wanted to know about their employee satisfaction. Are you happy here? Would you refer someone? Is your work-life balance balanced? Do you have a path to a career? And if you would quit, what would be the reason? Manager and supervisor. It's very important to know how they feel about those people that supervise them. Do you feel valued? Do you receive recognition? Is it fair and consistent? Retention, culture of the Lubbock State Supported Living Center. Are you proud to, and you have fun at work? Does administration contribute to a positive work culture? And again, extra feedback. Then we also discussed the client satisfaction survey. And I think we've talked about various ways on how to carry this one out. And I would really like feedback as well on those different ways to carry out a client satisfaction survey. because we were talking through all different kinds of ways of different people to bring in. Do we bring in the OT and the speech path to help them with their communicative intent? But how much of that are we also not really getting the true client input on it? So we do have one, but we haven't implemented it, and we knew it needed some more thought on how we were really going to get that out. But we want to know, how do they feel in the areas of independence? We wanted to know, could you take the survey with or without assistance? Are we providing everything we need for preferences and strengths? Do we like residential? Do we like where we live? Are you happy? Do you have free time? Can you choose what you want to wear? Can you change the rules in your house? Can you invite friends and family over? Work, do you like your job? Can you choose your job? Do you like the hours you're working? Do you feel respected? And if you have a job coach, can you choose that job coach? Community supports, friends and social support, activities, and guardianship if applicable. Am I happy with my guardian? I have a say who my guardian is. I see my guardian when I want. Guardians let me make my own decisions. Services at the center. I'm happy with the services my ID team members provide me. They give me support. It seems easy to contact my ID team members. They listen to me. Self-determination and rights. If they attend self-advocacy meetings, do they see and talk to the human rights officer or the ombudsman? Do you get to learn new things? Do you have control in your life? Do you get to make choices? And also a place for them to provide narrative feedback. So what were our challenges? Well, our original plan was that we wanted to actually have some data collected twice before we came back to this follow-up conference. We have not been able to put the surveys out at all. COVID-19 changed everything, and we had to put a lot of things in place to support our clients and our staff to keep them protected. We talked about it a couple of different times on how we might be able to get them out, but the focus really shifted significantly based on what State Office and Administration was telling us. So here's some things that we did. We have had screening at the gate upon entry daily with temperature checks. And this has fluctuated back and forth with how this looks. We are currently we receive new surgical masks on a daily basis. We have a temperature check. They're asking us, have you gone out of the country? Do you feel well? Taking our name down, making sure that we have all the things we need. And then we come into work. So every day it changes how long we're in that line, and we're all pretty cordial with each other. We have had full testing, every client, every staff tested. And we just received a text message on our texting service today that we are due to be receiving those again next week. The first ones were oral swabs, and we had to wait, I think, 2 to 3 days. They are trialing now a new plan being implemented, and we're actually going to be getting nasal, not nasal pharyngeal, but nasal swabs. And these are the rapid tests, so we should have answers back within 15 to 20 minutes. Lots of plans have been put into place for COVID to protect our clients and our staff. The facility identified then who could work via telework. We know we have to have people here around the clock to take care of our clients. We also have to continue on with work. So I can tell you, as far as my department, for therapies department, we have 32 people in our building. That's too many. We have offices where there are 3 people in here. So it had to be identified who could work from home, who could work here, and we switch weeks because we still need to go be able to fix things on people's wheelchairs if someone's had an injury, if someone's having difficult times at meals, if we need to go assist with those things. And each department has had to come up with different plans based on that. All staff were initially provided cloth masks, which were made by various departments on this campus, and some that were teleworking were making them at home as well. And so we received those very early on. We are currently in the surgical mask stage, and eventually we will go back to being able to wear cloth masks again. Also now have goggles and face shields, and the clients also have masks if they are able to wear them. We do have some that are more medically fragile, that we wouldn't be able to look for signs and symptoms of issues with respiratory if they were wearing them. We did have one client who asked for one, and it was concerning that he would be wearing it, and we explained to him and provided him education, and that we are wearing them, and it looks scary to see masks all around you, but we are preventing him from receiving our germs. But other clients have been wearing masks, and they will go to their team when they have lost theirs, and the teams are also working on, let's keep track of our PPE as well. So it's worked out very well. I've seen clients who usually get upset if they can't go into the diner to buy things, or too many people in there. They are practicing social distancing in their lines waiting to get in because there's only so many people allowed in. So it's been quite nice to see when they're understanding the rules, they're understanding what is at risk, but they do still have hard times as well because it is going on for quite some time. All visitors are currently prohibited from entering the facility, and our residents are restricted from leaving campus. Those are many talks we have to have with clients, which are sad at times. When you have a client that says, because he likes sensory input, he likes tickles on his hands, and he comes to your door and he says, I miss tickles. Or the client that thinks you're his guardian from a distance and asks when's she going to get to come back and visit. And so sometimes they're hard discussions. Sometimes they're good because they come up to you and you can say, what's going on? And they say, it's the virus. And so lots of education going on currently. Like I said, we now have a texting service. So the things that we receive on our text, we are also getting on email. But we know not everyone checks their email daily, especially the DSP that don't have access to a computer every single day. Or when they get to it, they might be bogged down with tons of emails and things get lost in there very easily. So it's really nice that they're sending it to the email and sending all this information to us. We get at least a weekly update on where we are as a facility with what's going on with our plans. So that information is wonderful to see that everyone is getting it. We made sure they have a marquee when we come in, and it said text this number to sign up for the texting services. And that's how they got the information out, to make sure that everyone that has a cell phone could get a text from the director and administration on a weekly basis. They also started, our assistant commissioner started at the state level being able to give out gift cards to staff. So those are also through a texting service that he does. And what happens is staff put their own name in, and they give him stories of uplifting things or things going on in their lives, any different kind of things he might ask. One week he said, tell me the song that you're listening to right now and why it's meaningful. And from all of that, he picks 2 people throughout different centers weekly, and then he sends us who won. So then that's kind of a neat thing too. If someone from Lubbock was able to get a gift card, if we were to see them, we could congratulate them. So it just provides a little bit of extra on top for doing some hard work right now. What did we learn through this? So because we have not been able to put our plan into effect with actually putting the surveys out, I will say for me, not being able to get something done stresses me out. But I had to learn from this, and Nora actually said something in one of our follow-ups with the mentors, that not everything that is a success, especially in the times that we are living in, has to be built into your plan. So we really had to start thinking about what are we doing that is successful. And so I started looking at several of the things in that manner. These pictures you see here, this was something that our recreation department said, everybody get some chalk. We saw it all over social media. People were doing this in their neighborhoods. and writing messages, and kids were doing all this stuff in their classes. And we said, why not do this here? So everyone went out and wrote on the sidewalks positive things. And one of the coolest things I saw was 2 different departments. It was actually one of the homes in our HT department, our therapies department, made messages back to each other. So our therapist had gone over to one of our medically fragile homes and put things out in front of it. And a few days later, we saw beautiful notes in front of our building from them as well, saying how much they are, that they feel loved by the things that we have done for them. So positivity as much as we could find. Some other things that we determined too, one of our ideas that we're going to talk about in our next steps too is this DSP council. We found out from our director that years ago they had one of these. We really wanted to identify some strong leaders from each home that is not in necessarily a supervisory position, but a DSP that's doing really hard work that can come in and say, oh, no, let me tell you what's really happening. And then advocate for their home and for the other staff and for the clients, and then be able to take that information back and bring more success to their home and then build up the other staff as well. So we also determined it's really important to find the value in things and not let good things that have been in place before go by the wayside. So this is something that once we're able to roll it out, we really want to make this part of our culture here, that staff have a voice in how things are done so they can raise each other up and make their jobs better.
Megan, this is Nora. You have about 1 more minute, okay?
Oh man, I talk way too much. Okay.
That's okay. That's okay. We all want to hear. So.
Okay. So we want to do videos after we do the surveys. We want to do videos with a DSP, a client, and an IDT member to really give the faces as to how they feel satisfied, the changes that they want, what we want to see in the culture. We want the DSP council, and we also want to designate clients to sit on the Human Rights Committee and the self-advocacy. We want to set up a face-to-face meeting with our assistant commissioner. When it all started, before all this has started, I had sent a message to Jennifer Eccles, and once the world gets normal again, we'd like to tour her facilities. We want to consider guardianship satisfaction surveys as well to make sure that they feel like their loved ones are being taken care of as well. Stay interviews. So instead of just, why are you leaving? We want to know why people want to stay. And so that's something, we have a retention specialist that is going to be doing those type of things. We have a buddy system where people that are in leadership positions are supposed to go to the homes and work with them. We had some fails in that area and we want to revamp that. Long-term goal is we'd like self-directed homes on our campus. That would look more like what it would be like to be living in the community. We had changes for the last quarter. In June, we found we had a increase in our fill rate. So that's been successful. Call-ins have gone down. The leadership team will look at their own. Oh, and then we decided we're going to all look at our own duties that we found because we don't work together. The 4 of us do not see each other on a daily basis, even before COVID. So we looked at some of the things that we found as successes. Through Jim's slides right here, these are things that we kind of talked about a little bit. Some of his ideas he wanted to do are going to be turned over to the retention specialist to really get in there and work with DSP on why they call in and what we can do as a facility to help. We've done lots of different things with parades and cookouts, water events, recreation, sidewalk decorating, and we're going to have booths for, because they cannot go to the fair here, we're going to make booths outside of our buildings as well. We're done with that. Some things that I found successful, I work on the Staff Choice Awards Committee. We pick people from each unit and at large, and we really go through and talk about why they need to be acknowledged. This goes into a newsletter and goes out to all of the facility. Some of the things I took back from our actual training was ways that I could impact in a meeting on how I write recommendations for goals in their annual meeting. So we are doing an exploration for a client for him to be able to do well checks with the elderly in the community. And at first it was said, we don't know if this is going to be successful. And so we really worked on finding our allies in that to get through the people that were saying, that were the naysayers saying, we're not going to be able to do that. That's not going to be successful. We said, no, we're going to find a way to make it successful, because he finds meaning and wants to actually talk to people. And he said, I'll meet new people this way. I love it. We found a local enrichment center in town that was having difficulties, and I reached out to some of the groups that are on this call right now and provided curriculum ideas. I trained therapists at a distance, which was very difficult, but we learned how to do it. And actually they felt like they were getting excellent feedback, more than when we were in this building all together. So learned lots of good things about how to use our technologies at a distance. And we had in the DOJ document positive discussion about living options. Kelly, HRO, attending weekly meetings via teleconferences. So she's still able to do those duties. She has self-advocacy continues. The recreation department, we've talked about some of the things we've put in place. And then they continue to hold the human rights committee. Lameka, do you want to talk about yours real quick?
So the behavioral services, we brought on some new staff to help in our department. We brought on 2 behavior coaches. We also hired a behavioral health assistant. We continue to have the behavioral services committee that ensured that individuals' positive behavior support plans were reviewed by members of the behavioral services department, along with other representatives from the facility. It was really important, especially during this time, to really focus on the behavior support plans because of what the individuals were going through as far as dealing with COVID and not really understanding what was going on as far as not being able to leave campus, not being able to have loved ones visit, not being able to go participate in a lot of activities that they were used to doing. Also with our behavioral coaches, bringing on 2 new coaches, they are designated staff to provide training and crisis response. So especially during a time like this, which is considered like a crisis for us on the campus, it's important to have staff available to assist with those type of issues. And they're available 24/7 to assist staff with crises that individuals may be experiencing. We also had a luncheon for our behavior services department, just as a staff appreciation, because this was a really stressful time that we all are going through at the facility, but especially for our behavioral services staff, because they're the ones on the front line as far as dealing with crisis, dealing with challenging behaviors and things like that. So it was really important that we had some type of appreciation for our staff to show them that they were doing a wonderful job and taking care of our individuals during this crisis.
That's it.
Kathy, would you like to make remarks regarding this presentation? We probably won't have time for a question and answer because we're going a little bit over, and we're going to try to keep to the schedule. So Kathy, please.
Sure, I think I have like 3 minutes, so I will try to be concise. Megan and Lameka, thank you. I'm sorry the rest of your team wasn't able to join you. I think it's excellent that you're reviewing your policies and procedures to make sure that they are more client-centered. You mentioned, for example, the guardianship policy. I would really urge you to look at best practice. Best practice doesn't allow staff to be guardians, but best practice does, and this is so important that you're going to look at it, does require that you look to see if the person even still needs a guardian or ever needed a guardian in the first place, or could the person's rights be restored, and could they better use a power of attorney for health care and perhaps a representative payee for finance. And if you're going to still need a guardian, are there community members that can be recruited, such as the pilot in Baltimore, Maryland, where they have successfully recruited numerous community volunteers as guardians. And I would say also, please look to the National Project of Significance on Human Rights and Guardianship that has been funded for 5 years that will provide free technical assistance in that area. The next comment I would make are on your client satisfaction surveys. I would just be very careful about having professional staff assist with the data gathering. There's a potential for conflict. It should be independent. You can use community volunteers to read the survey to the individual, or I would say look to the Pennsylvania USED, the Center for Excellence. They have an excellent quality review tool to be used with self-advocates who can't read. Both the Oregon and Rhode Island court monitors with the department, working for the Department of Justice, designed client review tools that are very effective, that are meant to be done orally. And also CQL, the Council on Quality and Leadership, has what's called the POST, which is an iPad interactive outcome survey for non-readers that is oral for self-advocates. I hope that you get permission to start sending your surveys out. I think the gift cards for staff was a nice first step on your journey for better staff retention. On your lessons learned in terms of the next steps, part 1, where you're going to designate a client to sit as an active member of the Human Rights Committee, always pick 2. You don't want to be the only one on the Human Rights Committee, so I always recommend that you at least designate 2 people with disabilities to support each other on the Human Rights Committee. Hopefully you're also looking at, have you transitioned your Human Rights Committee from the traditional Human Restriction Committee to a true Human Rights Committee where all clients are invited to attend their review at the Human Rights Committee, and they're welcome to bring a friend to support them, and they can ask good questions. We've got a long-term goal for self-directed homes on campus. I would encourage you to rethink that and have a long-term goal on self-directed supports instead. Maybe it's just semantics, but they're important semantics. I think it's great. You want me to stop? Okay, I'll just go one more minute. I know we're
1 more minute. Yep.
short on time. I think it's great that you've hired a retention specialist. Hopefully you can move your retention program along and get additional impact and input from not only your direct support staff, but people that you serve. It's great that your call-in rates have been reduced by more than 50%. Kudos to you. People do what you measure. And so I would say that in your behavioral service plan, where you talked about the things that you're doing, I would so encourage you to track the number of restrictions reduced. People do what we measure, and so that's a very important thing. Make sure that people with disabilities and DSPs are on the committee that is looking at the behavioral services, and that people with disabilities are also invited to attend those reviews. I think it's great that you've got a nice start in terms of self-advocacy, but it doesn't look like individualized kinds of things. It looks more like training on tasks like hand washing. So let's take a look at where can you build in some stronger self-advocacy training. where you're using self-advocates to do the training, linking with either the People First of Texas or the Protection and Advocacy session of Texas. There are some amazing trainings that self-advocates do nationwide, and I would encourage you to really look to have national self-advocacy experts be part of your self-advocacy solution. So very quickly, we're at 9:58, and I will turn it back to Nora.
Thank you very much.
We have time for one question. I think it's important. I just also want to make sure that everybody's looking at chat, because I'm trying to do private chats in regards to time as well. And so is there one question or comment for this group? Okay, let's move on. We'll make sure Nueces Center gets their 20 minutes. We'll go ahead and we'll shave some time off at the end of the day. So Dr. Carter will have 5 minutes to wrap up. And so that should help with our time frame. So Nueces, would you like to share your screen and get started? And wonderful job, love it. I know we've had some conversations during the mentoring, and you have done a fabulous job with COVID and making sure your residents are safe. Thank you, Kathy, too, for the insightful comments.
Nueces Center, this is Neil from Texas Tech. Y'all are currently muted. Do y'all need help unmuting?
Why would that matter? Sorry. Can you all hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, we are called in as well as on the computer screen. Okay,
That's all right. We can hear you now.
thank you. So hello and good morning. We're the team from Nueces Center for Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities, which is the local mental health and intellectual disability authority for Corpus Christi and the rest of Nueces County. In our presentation today, we're going to explain our Leadership Challenge project, including our goals, obstacles, where we are currently at in the project, of course, what is still remaining to be done. Our project is transforming our communication culture. Just to remind everyone who we are, again, we're Nueces Center. Our group is pictured here from left to right. I am Gina Benya, the IDD Services Director.
I am Jana Guerra, the Quality Assurance Director and Client Rights Officer.
And I am Heather Trevino, the Local IDD Authority Director. Both before and during the Institute, our team had identified several areas where improvement was possibly needed within our center. We're a large organization that, like the other community centers, serves more than just individuals with IDD. We serve individuals with mental illness, children and adolescents with mental and behavioral health issues, elderly individuals in nursing facilities, people with substance abuse issues, veterans and crime victims with PTSD, and a whole range of various populations. We also have a very large group of over 300 diverse employees and find that as we work through program improvements and system changes, we tend to hear the same complaints from staff. These are typically related to not knowing what is going on around our center,
not feeling involved in the organization, not feeling heard by their supervisor, and generally just a feeling of being out of the loop. Therefore, we felt it best to work on something that could benefit our entire organization, which is transforming our communication culture. We selected this because we believe that the communication directly impacts everything we do as a center. We also believe that transforming our communication culture will positively impact the individuals we serve. So again, we're working to improve communication within our center, which we believe will improve service quality. The main obstacles to continuing our project, as with everything else going on in the world, has been the coronavirus pandemic. The impact of COVID-19 regulations from the state and local leadership has been massive to our center and how we operate. As everyone on this call knows, it's taken a huge amount of time from organization leaders just to keep our organizations operational and our services moving forward. Projects like this one have been delayed, backburnered, or in some cases given up altogether. However, we do feel the goals of this project are vital to our center, and we do want to continue to pursue our project even beyond the end of this challenge. Outside of COVID, the obstacles facing our challenge have included current culture. Our staff have indicated via survey and often via exit interviews that they feel there is a lack of communication. Staff and sometimes even lower level supervisors have a fear to speak up. This is possibly due to unclear expectations on what information is allowed to be communicated. We believe this can be addressed by improving policies and through training. Also, some staff, despite our policies against it, worry about retaliation, both overt and covert. Personal sensitivities. This can include an unwillingness by some to receive negative feedback. This not only affects the staff, but also supervisors and managers sometimes feel this way as well. Hearing critical complaints about us is hard for everyone at all levels. For some supervisors and staff, there are also issues of conflict avoidance, while other supervisors and managers are not mindful of how they are perceived or may have a lack of awareness of their nonverbal communication. Obtaining buy-in. One of the key things we know is that implementing change is not possible without buy-in. For the center's communication culture to be transformed, we are pulling in everyone in the supervisory chain. We need them to understand the actual impact that poor communication has on our organization. For this reason, we will be working first with our leadership team, and then we will have them assist with training when it comes time to work with their group of supervisors and managers. We're asking for their assistance in this as we feel it's key for everyone on their teams to see them as a leader in this transformation as well. Time for and expenses of training. Everyone has a full plate. There have been and will continue to be difficulties in coordinating time for just our group to work on this project. We have to set time aside individually to read books, review recordings of potential speakers, read through and update policy, and it will take a great deal of time to put the actual training materials together. Then it will be time intensive for the leaders, managers, and supervisors to participate in the trainings. However, it will be key to have everyone active in this process in order for this transition to occur. Of course, all of this time, all of the materials we will need for the training, which it could include books, assessments, and speakers, will cost money, which for an organization like ours is not always easy to come by. We have looked at ways to address all of these obstacles. For COVID, we've determined that we cannot wait for the disease to magically disappear or for a cure or vaccine to be found. As with our services, we must soldier on in this new environment. This may mean that we have to do most, if not all, of our training online. For culture, we're going to address this through our training. We hope that if we cover this extensively and ongoing, that we will see a culture shift. We are also working to already model much of what we have learned to show our teams and the other leaders in our organization that we walk the walk and not just talk the talk. We purchased YouSpeak reporting through CARF. Along with YouSpeak standard questions, we created a survey to determine a baseline for improving communication. The survey was titled YouSpeak Report Employee Climate Survey March 2020. The survey contained 49 questions divided up into sections such as organizational culture and outlook, communication, leadership, teamwork, manager support, work environment, staff development, compensation and recognition, and overall job satisfaction, with 9 custom questions. We were able to include 16 questions that were specific to communication in all sections. The survey was sent out in March 2020 to 248 staff. 185 staff responded, giving us a response rate of 74.6%. We learned that 4 of the 5 areas that needed most improvement surrounded communication. 59% of our employees stated they were asked for input on job descriptions. 60.1% of employees feel that senior management is not informed of staff concerns. 63.9% of employees feel that their concerns are taken seriously and follow-up occurs. And finally, 67.8% of our employees feel informed about plans and progress happening at our organization. In reviewing the 16 communication-specific questions, we concluded that the employees feel that communication to and from leadership or senior management is lacking, along with being informed of organization plans. We were pleased to discover that we had high scores in areas of good staff communication between employees and their immediate supervisors.
As mentioned previously, we had to obtain buy-in at many levels. First, we started with getting our CEO on board. This initially occurred prior to our trip in February to Lubbock, but has continued with us keeping him in the loop and updated on our project status. We also had to obtain buy-in from our leadership team, so we made a Prezi and presented to them about a month or so back. We reviewed our project goals and what we believe the outcomes will be for our organization. A focus of that presentation was the time and expenses that would be related to the training at our levels, their levels, as well as the supervisory unit levels and the employee levels. We also discussed the cost of training materials as well. However, we made sure to focus on the positive impacts that would result from all of this. So these impacts on staff and eventually our consumers can be viewed as a chain or steps in a ladder. First, we believe that better communication from supervisors, managers, and more importantly from center leadership will ensure that we have a well-informed workforce. The communication will need to be timely, appropriate, clear, and effective in delivering our message. This will lead to less confusion and uncertainty amongst staff. People will be more certain about their job roles, what is expected of them, where they fit in the big picture, and the direction in which our center is headed. This will empower staff at all levels to do their jobs with more confidence. They will feel less insecure and more enabled to voice opinions and give feedback. They will also feel more responsible and less likely to pass the blame. This will lead to greater job satisfaction as they will feel they can make an impact on the organization, not just on the people with whom they interact daily. Then all of this should result in greater retention. Our center has taken action and is continuing to work on other areas that people have addressed in their exit interviews, such as training, pay, and benefits. Although there is still work to be done in those areas, our employee satisfaction survey clearly shows that communication is the main area in which our employees want to see improvement. So with greater retention of staff who are better informed, better trained, and hopefully more satisfied, we believe that this will ultimately lead to a higher quality services being provided to our consumers. This will not only impact them as individuals, but their families and their community as well. We also hope that this will prepare our workforce for the changes that will continue to come down the line from state and federal government regarding how we will be providing services in an ever more complex world. For IDD, we hope that staff will be ready to implement changes resulting from us seeking NCQA accreditation, as well as a result of implementing HCBS rule changes when they go into effect.
That was the background, goals, and obstacles, and the information on how we sold our team on our project. Now we're going to talk about what we've been doing most recently and where we're currently at. There have already been some changes that have been implemented relating to improving communication. Individually, we've done things like keeping supervision times, updating our teams on project statuses, asking questions related to how we're doing as supervisors, how we could better serve our staff, and vitally important right now, making sure to touch base face-to-face with staff, even if it is by GoToMeeting or Zoom. Our center has also started implementing a few new communication-related changes as well. Our center newsletter now goes out monthly via center-wide email, and it is also printed and posted in locations that staff frequently access. The newsletter includes information about service area changes, staff and program accomplishments, and various projects throughout our center. The quality management newsletter also goes out monthly. Information includes progress towards our continued Joint Commission accreditation, our journey to becoming a certified behavioral health clinic, our progress towards becoming a trauma-informed center, and other quality-related information. Our center also now has commercials on local TV channels. These update the community on what services we offer, how they can access services, various fundraising events we have going on, and other important topics. We're also expanding how we reach out to the public. We have several bus bench advertisements that give information on accessing center services. We felt this was a good way to reach out as many of our community members access public transportation. Furthermore, we're working to improve our social media outreach. We now have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. Our marketing and communications personnel work to keep these pages updated with information about center services, info about other partner agencies, and important information from Health and Human Services.
As we noted, there were some delays in our project, mostly related to COVID. And so when we were offered the opportunity to work with a consultant, we jumped at the chance to work with Jesse Smathers. Jesse is a licensed clinical social worker who is an established and forward-thinking expert in home and community-based services for people with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. He has held various positions in the behavioral health field, ranging from direct care to organizational leadership. Jesse is also a graduate from the 3-year North Carolina Advancing Strong Leadership in Developmental Disabilities program offered by the National Leadership Consortium on Developmental Disabilities at the University of Delaware in 2011. He has over 25 years of experience working to improve services for persons with IDD. Jesse also has significant experience working as a mental health and substance use disorder counselor. Jesse is currently employed by VIA Health as the Community Relations Regional Director. His efforts at VIA have included leadership of the 3-year Supported Living Making a Difference initiative and VIA's organizational efforts to address the opioid crisis. As a result of Jesse's many accomplishments and his vast experience, he really was able to give us an in-depth look into our data and assisted with ideas on next steps, especially engaging and training staff, which Heather will speak on more later in the presentation. We shared our survey results with Jesse, and some of the themes that Jesse identified from our survey results were: employees are aware of our organizational mission. They do understand diversity. They do understand that we have a focus on customer satisfaction, and we all have mutual respect for each other. At least 1 in 5 employees do not feel empowered. At least 1 of 5 employees do not take the responsibility for reading organizational communications. Though employees seem to believe that they can openly voice opinions and know their jobs well, at least 1 of 5 employees do not feel heard. Though employees seem to have respect for senior leadership, almost 2 of 5 employees do not feel connected to senior leadership. It was very encouraging to receive this information from Jesse, as we learned a lot from him. We will now speak about some of the other steps we are presently taking to accomplish our goal of transforming our communication culture. Aside from working on this presentation and delivering it to you today, we are in the process of reviewing and revising our center communication policy. A brief review has shown that it is outdated. There is old terminology, old names of our own agency, and the state agency that oversees us. It is very limited in scope, mostly discussing how frequent supervision should be between staff and supervisor, and that the supervision should focus on staff production. The policy itself states that the goal of communication should be consumer safety. We agree that consumer safety is always important, but we believe that there are other goals of communication within our center that should be included within the policy. Additionally, the policy does not include any information on feedback chains or when this is expected. We believe that it should include clear information on when supervisors should give staff feedback, and it should also clearly describe the routes and opportunities staff should have to provide feedback as well. Finally, the policy as it is written is ineffective. There are several items within the policy that would be very helpful and positive if they were actually followed, but they are not. We would like to include in the policy a requirement for regular review and updating. Additionally, we would like to update supervisor, manager, and director job descriptions to include reference to the following communication policy. So as mentioned previously, one of the next steps is going to be to develop and refine a training program for our supervisors and managers. Our idea is to have a series of trainings that address various topics with the ultimate goal of improving leadership skills and personal accountability, which will ultimately improve communication within our center and the quality of services we provide to those that we serve. While we are still working to develop our training program, we have identified some useful training materials that we could use. So first, of course, we would like to include some of the knowledge and tools we gained at the Leadership Institute. So specifically, we want to share the message included in the Leadership Challenge by James Kouzes and Barry Posner. The 5 practices of exemplary leadership include model the way, inspire shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. We will challenge each participant to identify examples of how they have utilized these practices and how each can improve. Not only are these 5 practices the most common among leaders who have successfully led through change and transformation, but these are a measurable, learnable, and teachable set of skills that will lay the groundwork for meaningful change within our organization. Through the work we did with our consultant, Jesse Smathers, the Oz principle was also identified as a useful tool to improve communication within our organization by holding ourselves and each other accountable. The idea behind the Oz principle is that when people take personal ownership of their organization's goals and accept responsibility for their own performance, they become more invested and may even work at a higher level. This ensures not only their own success, but everyone's success. There are also 5 self-assessments that accompany the book, each allowing the participant to identify their tendencies towards self-accountability. So each participant will complete the self-assessments and participate in small and large group discussions about the results. Additional training materials may include the Strengths Finder 2.0, used in conjunction with the book Strengths-Based Leadership for Managers. The assessment can be used by the supervisors and managers to help identify and make the best use of their own unique strengths and talents, as well as those of their team. The assessment and book have been reported to help boost employee performance, team engagement, and even employee retention. So improved communication, training, and retention will assist us in reaching our ultimate goal of providing the best possible services to the people that we support. We would also like to utilize a motivational speaker. So we have the opportunity to listen to a keynote address by a motivational speaker and trainer, Christopher Reidenauer. Christopher provides passionate and engaging trainings that are tailored toward each organization's missions, vision, and values. His passion, coupled with the knowledge of management and human performance improvement theories, could be extremely beneficial training tool for our organization and can still help instill our supervisors and managers with a refreshed perspective on both abilities and accountability.
5 minutes left.
We are, of course, always keeping our next steps in focus to keep the project moving forward. The first major step, of course, is to conduct the communication training. Originally, we imagined this to be an in-person full day of training, but it looks like it will likely be a series of shorter web-based trainings, since attention spans for online training are shorter. We're hoping to devise some activities that we could do with people to make the trainings more interactive and keep people engaged. As noted earlier, we intend on training the leadership of our center first. We want to get them involved in the training of their team and have them already implementing and modeling some of the things we will be teaching prior to introducing it to their teams. Then when we train their unit managers and supervisors, they have already seen some of this in action and will hopefully recognize it and be more likely to follow their director's lead. We also want to make sure that this improved communication is not just one way. Therefore, part of the project will include rolling out these policies and ideas to the employees as well. We envision that the supervisors at the individual unit level will update their employees on policy changes, engage them in conversations about communication, and of course, welcome their feedback. One idea that we're going to stress is the process of improved communication is ongoing and has already started. With that comes an expectation that people will begin to shift their thinking on communication and the importance of it during their training. We hope that upon completion of the training, people will feel empowered, engaged, and excited about the transformation that our organization will be undertaking. We will expect that everyone takes accountability for their own actions and any changes that they need to produce in their behaviors. We will be assisting individuals with follow-through by setting timeframes and goals for stages of the project. Managers and directors will be expected to track the changes that will be asked of their unit supervisors, such as holding regular supervisions and team meetings, keeping minutes that are accessible to their teams, providing timely evaluations, and of course show that they're asking for feedback as well. Although we will not be asking for the details of the encounters, we will expect that leadership will receive updates on their items. Furthermore, we know that it's very easy for people and organizations to slip back into old routines, so we do plan on having additional meetings and ongoing trainings on communication, accountability, and other leadership topics with our supervisory and managerial staff.
We are currently working to send out our second YouSpeak survey this month. August will be 5 months since our initial survey was taken by center staff. We are enthusiastic about seeing the results of the second survey. We are hoping this will show improvement in communication as seen by our staff. As you may have noticed, the initial survey was sent out in March. This was shortly prior to the pandemic really hitting home and many changes began to happen. As leaders in our organization, we definitely saw an influx of information from state and national levels of how we should conduct business during the pandemic. Leadership's responsibility for disseminating and sending out this information to staff in a timely manner. The results of the second survey will be very interesting to review, as much of this will reflect organizational and leadership communication that has occurred throughout this pandemic. Moving into the next fiscal year, we will most likely move away from the YouSpeak survey due to the expense in maintaining the high cost of the survey. We have decided to begin using SurveyMonkey to capture this information next fiscal year. The three of us greatly appreciate the opportunity that we have been given to be a part of the Institute, and we truly believe that through the transformation of our center's communication practices, we will positively impact our culture and staff, which will ultimately have a positive impact on our consumers. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. And just for the whole group, we'll take our break at 10:35. Kathy?
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Excellent presentation. Congratulations. When one does leadership and organizational change, usually what one identifies as the #1 barrier is communication. So I'm very impressed with your two excellent goals, which is improve communication and improve overall quality of services. I like that in your survey, you customized your questions so that you could get input and information that really is important to you as an organization. So nicely done. Obtaining buy-in, nice job getting your CEO to buy in and your leadership to buy in. But in any organizational change, I would just suggest that you also look to build in the rest of your stakeholders, your direct support professionals, your families, and the self-advocates. You've made some great changes. I'm always excited to see that one has a center newsletter, and then I'm thinking QM is probably a quality management newsletter, but a couple things you might want to think about to enhance that is sometimes we're finding organizationally that if you have like a topic of the month, either best practices or revised policies, where you then tell a story throughout the course of the rest of the newsletter, that goes quite well and assures that people read beyond the first headline. And so you might want to think about looking, the Minnesota, you said, the University Center of Excellence under Amy Hewitt, they have a best practice newsletter that might give you some ideas on best practices that you could use as themes for your newsletter. It's free, it's available in print, or it's available online. It's just an idea. The other idea is HSRI, Human Service Research Institute, has a newsletter called The Riot. It's online. It's a newsletter for self-advocates by self-advocates. And although I'm not suggesting that you just have a newsletter solely for self-advocates, perhaps there could be a self-advocate page to your newsletter, and that might give you some ideas. I do have a question for your television commercials and your bus bench advertisements. Great idea. Are you also using that for staff recruitment?
Yes, we are, for both.
Great, good thing to do. I'm always pleased to see an organizational change. You're reviewing and revising policies. Sometimes policies can be 10 years old. As you do that, I would just ask you to make sure the focus is on bringing the level of the language down to a level so that all staff can understand them when they read them. Is that going to be part of your review?
No, but that's a very good suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Training materials, I love your training materials. The only thing I might suggest is that you might also think, if you have time, and I know with COVID, no one's had time for anything other than safety, but perhaps some training materials for direct care staff and training materials for self-advocates. The one I might think you might want to take a look at is Stephen Covey's Habits of Highly Effective People. Covey has allowed Tia Nellis, who is a national self-advocate, who's currently with TASH, to adapt it for self-advocates, and she has created a curriculum of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People adapted for self-advocates. So it's just an idea, something to take a look at. In terms of your implement changes, how to get started, well, you've gotten started, and that's great. And I like that you have a follow-up loop. I love that you're tracking your changes. I think SurveyMonkey is a good resource for your next step survey. It allows people to feel a little more anonymous. And it's quick to do. You know, you go on, click, click, click. You can either take it. You can also offer a printed version for people who don't have access to computers. But I think the other is what will you measure? That's so important. And one of the things that I always ask people to think about when they're doing organizational change, especially if their focus is communication, which yours is for your monthly management meetings, what is your typical first agenda item? So go ahead.
Right now, for our weekly leadership, it's usually, does anybody have any positive stories that are going on around the center? And we kind of share those things first.
Absolutely the best thing. And that's what I was going to suggest. The number one agenda item should be who has an outcome or a success for a self-advocate, for one of our clients, that without disclosing personal information, you would like to share that shows that we've really improved the quality of our services. And I also suggest that that be the number one agenda item for your board of directors meetings. What is one success story? What is one positive outcome that you really want to highlight about how you as an organization are really affecting change and making a difference?
Yes, ma'am. We do that at our board meeting as well.
Good. That's great. So those are my comments. I think that you're on the right track. I think you're really making good change. The only other thing I would say is now you've made a really good impact in terms of improving communication, and I look forward to seeing your next steps on improving service quality.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kathy, I want to go back to Megan and Lamecca's question that they had during their presentation. And they had mentioned that they were interested, I believe, in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Megan and Lamecca, about a client satisfaction survey that they're interested in doing, and what is the best way to get information from clients or the residents at Lubbock State School in order to rather than use a staff member, which I think they mentioned as a possibility and some concern about that. But can you elaborate? And Megan, am I getting that correct?
Yes, and she did give a little bit of insight. And so here's one idea. We do have a family council, and they could be part of what allows us to find people in the community that would be able to assist us with doing those. Would that be a beneficial resource for us to utilize?
Absolutely. And so in my comments to you, Megan, I think it was the first one where I just, I didn't give Barry some concrete examples, and hopefully Barry, but I talked about, the family council would be a good group that could do it. community volunteers that could read the survey to the individuals. I would really look at the Pennsylvania's USEDS, I use USEDS, University Center of Excellence, quality review tool that they use with self-advocates. I, as the Oregon court monitor and the Rhode Island court monitor, both designed client review tools that could be used orally, and I could make those available to you. Although the focus was mostly geared on the settlement agreement, which is employment, you could at least get some ideas of probes and questions. And then CQL, the Council on Quality and Leadership, has a tool called the POST, which is an iPad interactive outcome survey that reads to you, that's interactive with a touch screen. And then I really would also encourage, I mean, I would probably call the Maryland DD Council about their statewide, or at least it's for sure in Baltimore, volunteer initiative where they have recruited community volunteers to be advocates, to assist a one-on-one individual for their ISP and for any quality survey reviews. Might be another place to look.
Thank you.
We have 2 minutes because break is at 10:35 and we'll be back on track. Are there any questions or comments at this point before we take a break? Spindletop, can you tell me the best way to let you know about time? Is chat okay? I have 2 screens, so I can see pretty well what's going on, but I don't know if everybody else can. So what would be the best way to let me know you have 5 minutes and then 1?
I can watch your, it's easier for me to see you and not the chat screen.
That's fine. Okay. So let's take a break until 10:45. Make sure to get nourishment, and we'll see you at 10:45 with Spindletop. Much to look forward to.